Okay, so probably the guy that you'd most want to hear UFC info on from, other than obviously Dana White, Hunter Campbell, but the guy that you want to hear the UFC info from is Jonathan, Jon Anik himself, baby, our lead commentator for every single pay-per-view, or numbered card now. He went on record at the Jackson Rampage Jackson podcast, which I don't even think had Rampage on it at the time. I don't know what's up with that. But, however, they were talking about the White House card, the card that's still so far away, but for some reason everyone wants to talk about. Everyone. However, if what Jon Anik says about this card is true, I might have to talk about it too, because it might go down as the best card of all time, man. They spoke about how Trump said that 8 title fights will be on this card.
They're building an arena. The great Dana White's building an arena. And they're going to have 8 or 9 championship fights, the biggest fights they've ever had. Everyone's a championship fight.
Which I think everyone assumed would be pretty impossible. However, whilst Jon Anik said that is likely too impossible, he believes the card could shape up to have like 6 or 7, for fuck's sake, man. 6 or 7 title fights. The most title fights on a card in history, and definitely the most in recent years. Now, could this be true? I don't know, man. It's very unlikely, and let me explain why.
It's going to be the biggest card of all time. I think you confirmed that.
So 8 sounds idealistic and awfully ambitious, but I do believe, Bear and Michael, that we are moving in a direction in which you might see 6 or 7 undisputed titles contested on the
night.
White House lawn. Well, if you think about it, they're getting UFC 324 and UFC 325 in the can by February 1st. All of those champions are going to be cleared, right?
So they get them done nice and quick. They got time to recover.
The month of February then I think has no numbered events, right? Then the first numbered event in March is being headlined by a non-undisputed title, the BMF belt, which doesn't really count, right? And then you think a pay-per-view, a numbered event, in April or May.
To be fair, it is a pretty solid point here. Both undisputed titles for men's featherweight and women's bantamweight will be available, which is great because Kayla Harrison is our only American champ. The interim situation is technically championship, and in theory it is possible that Taporia will be ready up in like late June, but we just don't know right now. However, what he said about March being headlined by the BMF makes no sense to me, because in theory, you'd rather have the BMF be scheduled for a later card so that the championship could have a quick turnaround too. Does that make sense? Because in theory, April, May, and potentially a second June card will all need championship headliners. And I doubt they wouldn't do championship headliners or just do women's headliners for multiple months in a row just for the White House. So right there, that eliminates 3 champs from being able to be on the White House. However, yeah, you could still have 8 more, but then who would headline July, August, September, and onwards pay-per-views? You still need to save champions for those as well. So yeah, theoretically, you could do 6 or more title fights on one card, but you'd be screwing over a significant amount of pay-per-views. Hell, almost every single numbered card of 2026 would be impacted if you were to have that many champs on one numbered event. I mean, Paramount refused Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes as a main event of their January card. I doubt they'd accept non-championship fights as headliners for most of their year, most of their first year, just for one very stacked card. I mean, in my opinion, that's just bad business right there. So let's run through what is actually realistic for this card. Number 1, hear me out for a second. Why do multiple titles fights when all you need is one man? One man who isn't even a contender, let alone a champion. I'm talking about Mystic Mac, baby. The Mystic Mac predicts these things. Mystic Mac predicts. Oh, this is a terrible accent, whatever. Mystic Mac predicts Conor McGregor for the White House card. I'm talking about Conor McGregor. Now, Conor has been in some pretty major hot water, But putting that aside, if his comeback was to happen on this card as the headliner, I think you could basically sell this thing from that alone. However, I think we'd all want McGregor back for the trash talk, and it would be so weird to have him talk trash and say, mate, who the fuck is that guy? Right in front of a massive American flag and the presidential team. But who am I to speak on that? I'm just some random Australian. But yeah, he'd also have the greatest comeback of all time in front of zero fans. The White House won't be an event you can just buy tickets to. So unfortunately, I do think I'd rather have his comeback elsewhere. But hey, if fighting on this card keeps him motivated to train and to not pull out, then I'm in. If this is the only way, then I'm in. Although I don't think anything will keep him motivated, unfortunately, to stay off the beers, we can give it a shot. Oh yeah, and I think it would be against Chandler, because you need an American in the main event, and he wears out proud. Although I think there's a high chance Connor slaps him up, I'd put Chandler in the main event. Then I think if Kayla Harrison beats Nunes, you definitely have to put her on here too, as one of her championship fights. Now where do you go from there though? 'Cause that's one championship fight and a McGregor. That's pretty good for the card so far. But I think you'd want like at least another championship fight. Ideally, in my mind, you'd want Americans to fight in the White House, right? It wouldn't mean as much for Volk to fight there as it would for like a Holloway or Poirier. So let's look at the current list of champs. Aspinall is British and out with an injury at the moment. Gain is his next contender and isn't American either. Pereira recently posted on Instagram saying looks like the White House is a no-go, meaning his bout against Jones was declined. And honestly, thank God. Although that fight would be perfect for the White House, we can't just let Jon Jones run the show at heavyweight, doing whatever he wants anymore. And this is his punishment for booting out before fighting Aspinall. So instead, seeing as Pereira got a quick, easy round 1 KO against Ank, I'd prefer to see him back in April or at least earlier than the White House. Then again, I think he might be getting a little busy. He might be a little busy getting busy. How about Hamzat? Hamzat's next rightful contender is the Imavov, and neither makes sense for the White House, and by that point Hamzat would have been out for almost a year, so he should have a fight before then. Islam probably could work if they put him up against Usman. Usman is American, and if they're not the co-main, wait, I've just thought about this. If you get Islam Makhachev against Kamaru Usman on a co-main to a McGregor fight, you know the presser would be insane. I'm not even sure if Team Habib would be comfortable with that though. Would they really want their boy co-maining to Connor? I don't know. You guys let me know if you think they'd be comfortable with that, but I don't think so. Plus, with their violent tendencies, I could see a brawl going down between the two teams at the bloody White House. So I'd think they'd have to stay at home if they did that. I also don't think Usman should be fighting for the title off of his one win. I think instead it should be Ian Gary, although if they want to give the Malteser head a title shot, they should definitely do it here. Islam also called for the White House. So, look, now let's look at the rest of the list, because that's a maybe. Now, out of the rest of the list, I only see two other championship fights that could be a possibility. Ilia Topuria versus Justin Gaethje if Gaethje beats Pimlet, and Piotr Yan versus Sean O'Malley too. Now, neither fight I very much like. For one, I heavily doubt that they'll even do a Yan versus O'Malley too, considering Marab would probably get that rematch first, and that fight would have to be booked for April at the earliest, which I don't even think is enough time for Yan to turn around for O'Malley, and once again, I don't even think O'Malley would deserve it coming off of one win in January, and he'd have to beat Song Yadong. So, there's a lot of ifs, maybes, whens. You'd have to go through a lot of hurdles. You'd have to find a reason not to give Marab the title shot, which I think he deserves it. O'Malley coming off of one win, getting a title shot after getting two title fights back to back that he lost. I'm not a big fan of it. I don't see it, me personally. So I'm going to say this is unlikely. But do you know what's more unlikely? Gaethje ever becoming a champ. I'm sorry to hate on Gaethje, but dude, beating Paddy is going to be hard enough. Beating Topuria is going to be even harder. Topuria is going to kill him. Topuria is going to kill him. But I do like that fight for the White House, though. If Gaethje does win, but that's a big if. So overall, if there's one thing that I can say, if there's a moral to the story here, it's that I doubt we'll get 6 or 7 title fights on the White House. So look, like, subscribe, let me know what you guys think is an ideal, but not just an ideal White House card, but a realistic one. I don't think 6 to 7 title fights is realistic. I think maybe a Conor McGregor, a few other title fights, maybe 1 or 2 more is realistic. And I think a card like that, title fights on top of a McGregor fight card, honestly, that could be card of the damn century, bruv. Not just the year, not just the decade. The White House card could be the best card of all time if you have McGregor, maybe, Kayla Harrison, and then one other title fight, maybe 2 other title fights, but 6 or 7 is pushing it. So yeah, like, subscribe, and yeah, goodbye.